You're not unconfident because your mindset is broken. You're unconfident because your mindset is the wrong starting point. Trying to build confidence by flooding your brain with affirmations is like turning up the volume when you hear a rattling noise in your car. It's still there, and it often shows up as comparison. I volunteer with CASA, which supports kids in the foster system, and in one training, another volunteer casually mentioned how he was going to do all these elaborate experiences with his CASA. He joked that his kid would be blown away driving around in his Ferrari and Maserati, and everyone oohed and awed and joked that they wished they were his kid. I sat there and smiled, but I felt it immediately. Comparison, status, that feeling in my stomach that says, "Whoa, you're not doing enough." Nothing changed externally, but internally, I could feel that spiral starting. And that moment where you feel your ego panic is the most important moment to recognize. Because confidence isn't a mantra, it's seeing yourself clearly when comparison shows up. It's not forcing yourself to believe you're amazing, it's just seeing yourself without the distortion. And in that room, the distortion was setting in. My brain was starting to build this story. He's better, he's doing more, you're behind. And the entire time my mind shifted from how can I help these kids to how do I measure up to this other volunteer. That's when the clarity fades. The Stoics actually warned about this. Epictetus wrote, "If you seek to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." In other words, stop trying to manage this outward perception. Focus instead on judgment. In that moment, I wasn't lacking resources, I wasn't lacking commitment, I was lacking clarity. And it's crazy that most advice is like, well, just change your mindset, tell yourself you're great, and repeat these affirmations, but that's just noise. What actually builds confidence is interrupting distortion. When I recognized that comparison spiral, I just labeled it comparison. Not truth, not reality, just comparison. And that's it. After I named it, I wasn't being sucked into it anymore. I was just observing my ego. Was it easy? Was it perfect? No, it was hard. I could still feel it trying to reel me back into the spiral for at least another hour, with little flashes of, oh, well, what about this? But since I had labeled it, I could just watch it. I could see that it wasn't this part of me, it was just this ego. And eventually, I actually felt happy for this volunteer. Not performatively, I wasn't trying to become this dude's best friend, although he could be a nice guy, I don't know. But I really did feel happy for him, that this guy with this many resources is actually taking the time to volunteer and help kids who really need it. That's awesome. I'm so glad someone like that cares. In that moment, confidence didn't feel like I transcended into the sky. It just felt like clarity. And clarity made room for generosity. And that's it. The Stoics talked about this way before psychologists could prove it. They said confidence comes from correct judgment about what's in your control and the humility to release what isn't. In that moment, I couldn't control his resources or how impressive he sounded. I could control whether I let comparison distort how I see myself. Modern psychology says a very similar thing in a slightly different way. Albert Bandura, the researcher behind self-efficacy, found that confidence doesn't come from belief alone. It comes from experiences of mastery, repeated evidence that you can adjust and handle challenges. In other words, confidence grows when you're able to adjust under pressure, not when you hype yourself up. There's also research in something called cognitive diffusion, used in acceptance and commitment theory. It shows that when you label a thought, instead of becoming fused with it, it becomes less stuck on you. And that's exactly what happened in that room. I didn't counter it with, oh no, I'm super great. I didn't suppress it. I just labeled it. Comparing. And here's why that's really important. That labeling created that distance restored clarity, and that clarity restored confidence. That's the pattern underneath the hood. Confidence equals accuracy over ego, choosing truth over image. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change." That's confidence, being able to swap a bad take for a good one, being able to swap these distortion glasses with a clearer one. And it's admitting, I was way off. The more you prioritize accuracy over protecting how you look, the calmer you become. In practice, confidence grows when your daily decisions reward alignment instead of image management. Under social pressure, confident people choose their own standards instead of someone else's. They don't buy these flashy things to keep up with the Joneses because they don't need to externally prove themselves. Externally, they're reinforcing that their clear view of themselves doesn't collapse without approval. And that same thing happens internally. You notice comparison, you label it, you correct it, you move on. Without correction, our view of ourselves becomes so distorted that we try to attach so hard to managing how others perceive us. And social media is an expert at eroding your confidence. And it has nothing to do with weakness. It has everything to do with that it's a massive machine to keep funneling insecurities at you. Psychologist Leon Festinger introduced this social comparison theory. The idea that we evaluate ourselves by comparing to others. In normal life, it'll happen occasionally, but on social media, it's constant. And your brain will start treating that as reality. It's endless comparing yourself to others with these highlight reels and statuses, and research consistently shows that constant upward comparison on social media correlates with higher levels of anxiety and lower levels of self-esteem. It's a machine that's made to amplify your ego and distort your clarity. And if you can't actively practice that correction, it becomes so much harder to see yourself clearly. Confidence doesn't come from affirmations. It comes from correction. It's seeing clearly even when your ego doesn't like what it sees. Confidence is accuracy over ego. That's the formula. If you want to know more about the psychological traps that keep comparison running in the background, then check out this video right here. This is Better Inputs. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe.